So Dying Light 2 is a pretty big game. Huge world, lots of missions, lots of danger, and loads of infected zombies. There's a lot to do in it, and there's a lot to learn about it too. The game pretty much runs through a lot of the basic stuff you need to know at the beginning, holding your hand while it tells you the simple game mechanics, with a bunch of pop-up pages and tutorials. But with that said, the game also keeps quiet about a lot of stuff too, and doesn't really cover some things in a lot of detail, or even cover them at all, forcing you to find things out for yourself as you go about playing it. In this video, I'm going to run over a few of these things, many of which could make life easier if they were known about a bit earlier on. Some of these things can be found out over time, some things quicker than others, but if you've just started playing, then this little list might come in handy, and probably help to explain some stuff that probably could have been explained slightly better nearer to the start. Here's 10 things I wish I knew before playing Dying Light 2. So a very big part of what makes Dying Light what it is the fact that it features a day and night cycle, which is a lot more dynamic than your average day and night cycle in other games. All of the nasties come out at night, and wandering around the city suddenly becomes a lot more dangerous, not only due to the infected stumbling around on the streets below, but also because it can make you turn into a zombie too if your immunity timer runs out. If you're miles away from a safe zone and you get caught out in the middle of nowhere while the sun goes down, then this can sometimes be bad if you're not expecting it. So in Dying Light 2, when does the light actually die? The answer, 7:30 PM is sundown, 8 AM is sunrise, which you'll be able to keep an eye out for at the bottom right corner of the screen where you'll find the in-game clock. If you're getting a bit carried away and completely forget what time it is while you're playing, there's also a few warning signs too about half an hour before the night, as the sun's going to start to go down and you'll hear sirens and bells in the distance, and of course everything will start to get a little darker. So if you don't want to get caught out at the night, start to plan your route back to safety once you notice these cues. A lot of Dying Light 2 takes place high up on rooftops, but you will need to come down to street level quite often, and because you're only human at the end of the day, you can't just jump down from any height and expect not to take any damage. You could look out for garbage bags and mattresses, which will help to soften your landing and prevent you from getting hurt, probably one of the most obvious ways to get down quickly in the game, though you could also just jump onto one of the many cars and vehicles littered all over the streets below, which actually act in a very similar way to the mattresses. Because vehicles are practically everywhere on the game, they do a really good job at making life easier, and considering they aren't exactly soft things to land on, you can still jump on them from some pretty high up places, without having to worry about taking a hit to your health bar. If you play the first Dying Light, you'll probably remember just how savage the nighttime can really be. Hordes of the undead suddenly become a lot more vicious and lively, and of course, you're constantly on the lookout for volatiles, one of the most dangerous forms of infected in the Dying Light universe. They'll hunt you down relentlessly on sight and take you down in a single blow. This made a lot of players avoid and even some fear getting caught out at night, but in Dying Light 2, the sun going down is far less of a problem, because those volatiles don't actually wander around at night anymore, and are mainly just found during story sequences, in specific indoor areas, and only come chasing you at night if you reach chase level 4. This gives players less of a reason to be wary about venturing out at night, as although the streets are still littered with infected, and you're still usually best sticking to the rooftops, it's generally a far less risky place to explore after sundown, at least compared to the first game anyway. Just keep an eye on your immunity meter, which can often be the deadliest thing of all. Following on from the last tip, now you know that going out at night isn't so terrible after all, it's also worth pointing out that becoming a night owl actually comes with its own unique benefits. Not only does it provide you with some other different activities to do that aren't available through the day, like special enemy encounters, GRE anomalies, and the exploration of dark hollows and forsaken stores, all of which can give you rare loot, but the night also gives you XP bonuses, which can help to give you a further boost, allowing you to level up your skill trees faster. You'll automatically get more XP for your actions just by doing them at night, and if you get yourself into a chase, which can often be started by the howlers on the streets, then this bonus can be multiplied by up to 5 times depending on what chase level you're on, which goes up more and more the longer you're in the chase and the more you're causing chaos, killing other infected. It can often be a bit risky getting too far into a chase, as loads of virals and even volatiles will eventually come after you, but so long as you can reach a safe spot and essentially bank all that extra XP you just earned during the night by heading to sleep, it can definitely be worthwhile, offering you with more reward. So although you've selected difficulty right at the start of the game, it's good to know that once you unlock free roam and you can go off on your little travels and explore the city, different areas within the city actually cater to different player ranks, So in other words, wandering off without really thinking too much might mean that you'll stumble into tougher enemies and missions, without you even being aware. Your player rank is indicated at the top right of the screen in the menus, but each individual district on the map is marked by its own player rank range. So for example, Houndfield in Villador has a player rank rating of 2 to 4, though because it pretty much takes up the entire left side of the map and can be accessed from the start, if you accidentally venture over while you're still at rank 1, then it might seem a little bit tougher than normal. Missions and activities on the map also give you an indication of what player rank they're specifically designed for, next to their name, so it's definitely best to keep all of this in mind. Plus, if you're wondering why certain districts are coloured in, that's because they're occupied by one of the game's several factions. Here's a good thing to know that seems to have been carried over from the first game. Dying Light 2 has quite a few things in common with the likes of Fallout and Skyrim, in the sense that it's got a very similar lockpicking mechanics and that RPG-styled inventory system. But another thing is the fact that going to sleep will actually restore your health to the max. If you've taken a lot of damage and don't want to waste all of your precious medkits and medicine to get your health back, the most efficient way to do so is by visiting a safe zone and simply nodding off to sleep in a sleeping bag, allowing you to wake up with a full bar of health without having to use any consumables or crafting items. Considering it can often take quite a few consumables to refill your health bar to full, especially if you haven't upgraded your medicine blueprint, this sleeping trick can literally be a lifesaver, especially if you're early on in the game, saving quite a lot of your resources for when you really need them. Plus it also lets you change the time of day too, fast forward into either the night or the morning, making it an extremely useful mechanic for several different reasons. Probably one of the easiest things to overlook while you're just casually playing Dying Light 2, especially nearer to the beginning, is the fact that there's a hell of a lot of infected that drop these things called trophies. Only the less common infected have these, but considering that covers nearly everything apart from the general biters, yep, virals are also classed as less common. This means that there's still quite a lot of infected that can be looted for these trophies, which all have a rarity level depending on the type of creature. They might not seem very important at the start, but you'll soon come to realise that you're actually going to need loads of these trophies to upgrade your gear at the Craftmaster. So although it can be easy to forget, whatever you do, always try and loot a special infected after you kill it, as this will usually grant you one of these trophies, and you'll especially want to do this if it's a creature that you don't see very often, saving you trying to find these trophies later on in the game when you want to go for those upgrades. Another thing to know that will save you a bit of messing around in certain areas is that not all places can be reached nearer to the start of the game. Stamina is useful for swinging weapons and free running around the city, but you'll only have a limited amount of stamina at the beginning, which might take a while to build up as you play and find inhibitors on your journey. This is not only important for basic maneuvering, but it also practically restricts you from getting to certain high up places, with some areas literally closed off for you if your stamina level is too low, like the top of the hospital for example. It also might mean that you'll have to take longer routes to get to certain rooftops too, forcing you to find a flat level to stand on to regain your stamina bar back up to full in between climbing some walls. So although it might be tempting to just spend all of those inhibitors on health bar upgrades, stamina can also be just as important too. Before you rush on into an area and start waving your knives around, trying to hack and slash your way through waves of undead enemies, it can often be best to look around, scope out your surroundings, and use things in the environment to make your life a little easier by playing smarter. Red gas canisters can be hit or ignited, forcing them to blow up not long after, which can be used to clear out whole areas from biters or hostile humans, or even deal large amounts of damage to some of the tougher infected types, making them easier to take down. You can kick enemies into spikes dotted around some areas, impaling them and killing them outright. And you may have also noticed some dead people lying around in the game that happen to have green lights attached to them. This is for a specific reason, because if you go over to them, you'll notice that they actually have spears sticking out of them, which can be picked up and thrown to deliver some strong amounts of damage over range, which can come in really handy if you're taking on certain toughened enemies that you don't really want to get too close to, like the Revenants during the GRE Anomaly events. And last point of the video, one thing you'll probably want to do as soon as you can is unlock the dropkick ability, which is easily one of the best combat skills in the whole game. It's quite early on in the skill tree, but there are quite a few requirements in order to unlock it nevertheless, and one of these requirements is upgrading your health bar to 180 HP. This is done by finding inhibitors and spending them on health upgrades in the menus, and if you want the dropkick ability as early as possible, you're going to have to prioritise health over stamina, at least at the beginning of your playthrough until you get that dropkick. Not only that, but you're also best spending your first point on the air kick ability too, which must be bought first before you're allowed to get the dropkick skill with another combat point. It's a highly effective and extremely useful ability, letting you send enemies flying through the air, and considering you spend a good portion of the game high up on rooftops, it can be one of the easiest ways to kill said enemies, by just simply kicking them off the ledge to their deaths below. So there's 10 things I wish I knew before playing Dying Light 2. Some of these things you'll probably be aware of if you play the game for a while, but if you're fairly new or just about to start, these tips should definitely help you out, and make life a little bit easier while you're playing the game. Thanks for watching guys, give me a thumbs up if the video helped, and subscribe for more content coming up in the future. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.